What's up everyone, it's a Knife Site here, and today I'm going to be doing an overview on the Chris Reeve Knives Large Sebenza 31. So right now, as of June 27th, 2020, the day I'm recording this, these are out of stock at Blade HQ, at Knife Center, and at DLT Trading. I found them listed as in stock on monkeyedge.com, but I'm not sure how trustworthy they are. I've never ordered from Monkey Edge, and so if you guys know if they are trustworthy, please leave that in the comment section and help people out who want to buy these right now. But the small versions of the Plain Jane 31 are available in stock at the place I listed before. But without further ado, let's get into the specs of this knife. The specs of the 31 are the exact same size as the large 21. But anyway, it's an overall length, for the people who don't know, of 8.3 inches with a blade length of 3.625 inches, a blade thickness of 0.12 inches, a handle thickness of 0.46 inches, and a weight of 4.7 ounces. I measured the thickness behind the edge. It is about 17 thousandths at the base right here, and towards the tip, it thickens up to about 20 thousandths. That is the thing with the drop point Sebenza version. I believe the Insingo stays the same thickness throughout. I'm not entirely sure about that. But anyway, let's get into these size comparisons. Almost forgot about that. I'll pull out the Spyderco PM2. Let me line these up here. And the the ZT0562. These are all knives that are pretty evenly sized. And then I will throw up the Microtech LUDT right there at the top. So onto the looks of these knives. Basically, what's my opinion on how this knife looks? I think it honestly looks really good. The bead blasted titanium handles, I think have a good color to them, and I like these pops of colors with these anodized parts. Even though the anodization has worn off a little bit on this thumb stud, I still don't think it ruins the look of the knife, and I like these little pops of colors. A lot of people don't like them, but the versions with inlays aren't colored like that, or at least some of them aren't. So if you don't want these, you can get a different version of this knife, which is cool because there are a lot of different possibilities out there. So for the design of this knife, I always talk about the design, and this design is just so simple and so iconic. I feel like if I could explain the Sebenza in one sentence, I'd probably say that they took one of the most simple designs and just perfected it to the best that they could. I feel like if you did a Google search of just a knife silhouette, you would see something that looks similarly to this. And basically what they've done is just use all their insane machinery and all their expertise to make a great knife and just perfect it in almost every way possible. So on to the fit and finish of this knife, and it's really, really good. It is perfectly dead centered, which it kind of has to be because the tolerances are so tight. This could not be a hair to the left or the right, or would be rubbing against that titanium scale. My only real complaint with the fit and finish is that this lanyard barrel right here, it has a little bit of a shake to it, but I was talking with Kiefer 2, he has some numbers to his name, but you guys, he's the guy who made the Metal Complex little spoon unboxer thingy, but he was saying that he has the same problem, and he put some blue Loctite in there, and that really helped it. But anyway, there is no side-to-side play at all. And about the lock rock, I will get into that right now. Eugene Kwan has a video on this. That will be the top link in the description. I think he explains it way better than I could. Basically, the problem was a lot of people were raving that there was lock rock on the Sebenza 31s. And I looked at the Blade forum thread, and it was about, like, last time I looked, it was like 30 pages long, which is kind of crazy. One of the longest ones I've ever seen. But anyway, basically the thing is, with this ceramic ball interface locking mechanism, that is the problem with it. It allows for a tiny bit of flex in the blade. So while when I go like this, there is no lock rock, but when I put a little bit of downward pressure on the blade, it does push down a tiny bit. This is going to be hard to see, but maybe I'll be able to just stare at that thumb stud. Well, that was not very helpful, but I do feel a little bit of it pushing down and then coming back up, and a lot of people got mad about that. But the thing is, this is the same kind of locking mechanism that's on the Umnumzon and the Nkosi, and so it's the same exact thing. So if you have one of those and you don't complain about this problem on that, then you're really just kind of being a hypocrite if you think that locking mechanism is still good. And this is still a really good locking mechanism. Eugene Kwan gave the analogy that if you are batoning with this, it's still going to push down and then rocket back up and still be locked up in position. And so I honestly have no complaints about the locking mechanism. And the people at Chris Reeve Knives, they invented the frame lock. So I trust any kind of frame lock that they're going to put out. And I would find it hard to imagine that they'd make a new type of frame lock that is worse than their old one. And so let's get on to the blade of this knife. So the blade of this knife is really, really, really good. This stonewash finish just looks really nice. It's one of my favorite stonewashes. It looks like the one that Hogue does, and I just think it looks really good in general. Like I said before, it is hollow grind. It is a hollow grind, and it is about 17 thousandths beyond the edge. Now, if this was a full flat grind, I would probably want it to be a little bit thinner than 17 thousandths. But if you think about it, this knife, if it was thinner than 17 thousandths, it would have to be very thin through this part. Like after sharpening, the Sebenza probably won't start thickening up till right at the top of my thumb there. So you're going to get a lot of sharpening and a whole lot of use about this knife, or with this knife, before it actually becomes unusable like a lot of flat grinds. For example, this PM2 that I have comes 20 thousandths beyond the edge, but it has thickened up to 25 thousandths beyond the edge because I put it through a lot of use and sharpened it a lot. And that's just what happens with flat grinds, and that's why I prefer hollow grinds to flat grinds. I would very much happily give up a couple thousandths beyond the edge to have a hollow grind rather than a flat grind. So this is a very good cutter, coming in at about 17 thousandths beyond the edge. It's not as good as an LUDT, which is like 9 thousandths beyond the edge, but this will also be very good for hard use, which is what the knife has been made for. A channel on YouTube, a lot of you guys probably have seen it, Big Brown Bear. He makes really cool knives. He really pushes HRC and blade geometry, and he showed that with a knife that was 15 thousandths beyond the edge, he chopped a nail in half, and there was only a slight roll in the blade. So knives do not have to be 25 thousandths beyond the edge to be good work knives. They can still be thin behind the edge. And while a knife that's 9 thousandths behind the edge probably won't be the best for using it as a work knife, a knife does not have to be 25, 30 thousandths beyond the edge in order to hard use it. But anyway, I really, really like this blade. I went with the drop point blade shape just because, honestly, the drop point blade shape is my favorite blade shape. A lot of times, I just like using this flat and then maybe using the belly for a little bit of extra cutting. I either like to insert the base of the knife into whatever I'm cutting and then go through and let the material hit the belly and it just does a little bit more cutting. Or what I like to do is put the tip in and then push through and then go like that. And what it does is when the tip goes in, it catches this belly here and then it moves onto the flat, and then you can cut through whatever surface you're doing. And I just think that the drop point has been one of the most iconic and simple blade shapes, and is my favorite blade shape, and I don't think that's really ever going to change anytime soon. But I will have to say, I could see myself getting like a small Sebenza or a small Nkosi and getting the Nsingo blade shape, just because it might be better for like the simpler tasks I'm doing, like cutting cardboard. And while the drop point blade shape is good, that one might be a little bit better at the simple, easy, lightweight stuff. But anyway, onto the carry of this knife. So the pocket clip, I never handled the Sebenza 21, and no one really had complaints about the carry of that one, but this one is just better. Basically, instead of just being a straight clip like it was and sitting like this, it is canted a little bit, and so it'll sit better in the pocket, and you'll be able to reach around it easier because the majority of the knife will be pressed against the inner seam of your pocket, so that's a good thing. This is a right-handed only knife, and so this pocket clip cannot be switched to the other side, but don't worry, lefties, because Chris Reeve, they are very, very good at appealing to the left-handed audience, and they make many, many left-handed variations. I'm pretty sure all their knives have a lefty version, which is really cool, and you don't have to complain about maybe screw holes being on the opposite side that you're not using, and lefties get what they want too, but they may have to wait a little bit longer for them to restock or even come in stock in the first place, so keep that in mind. The ease of disassembly of this knife, that is one thing that I really, really like about Chris Reeve. While I have not taken this apart because I have not really had the need to, they encourage you to disassemble your knife, and I think that is very cool. There is a YouTube channel that they have, which is basically they give tutorials on disassembly. They just did one of the 31, and they include this hex driver in there, which fits both of these screw holes. And so while I have not disassembled it, I might take off the lanyard, but I really don't know. So basically, I've been carrying my LUDT with a lanyard on and just trying it out. And I kind of liked it. You know, it hasn't really been that big of a problem. Sorry if there's excess noise. I'm putting this box away. Really nice box, by the way. But I'm trying out the lanyard, and I just kind of want to see how it works. It hasn't been that big of a problem. The only thing I worry about is when it's sitting in my pocket, if there's a giant lanyard sticking out, people might notice it, and it might bring some attention that I don't really want to a big knife like this. And so that's really the only downside I see. But I kind of like being able to put my 2 fingers on here, grab it out, and then be very close to that thumb stud and ready to open it. So onto the ergonomics of this knife. The ergonomics on this are fantastic. They're just really, really good. So when just looking at it, it might not look like it's very ergonomic, but it is just super straight and super flat. There's just a tiny bit of a little indent here for your pointer finger, but just this finger cut out, you don't really feel that when you're holding it, so that is not a hot spot at all. And even if your hand lands differently on it than mine, this is very nicely chamfered down, so there will be no sharp edges there. And what these just simple flat ergonomics do for me, which I really like, is I don't just have to hold the knife in a simple grip like this. Let me pull out my ZT again, and this knife, look at all these finger grooves here. This is just suggesting your hand that you can pretty much only be in like this. A lot of times I'll cut like this, or I'll just do a creative certain grip based on whatever task I'm doing. You don't really know which is going to work the best until you're actually using your knife. I feel like a lot of people, whenever they grab a knife, they just grab it like this. And so, but when they're actually using it, just these straight ergonomic lines make your hand able to adjust accordingly to the situation at hand. And one grip that is oddly surprising that I really like with this knife is it's kind of like choking up on it, but not really. I like to put my middle finger in this finger groove and then just kind of wrap my pointer finger right there. I'm not really going to come in contact with that blade, and I just use this for lighter tasks, and so I don't think this blade could like slip out of my hand and cut my finger on accident. But this is really good because a lot of people like a pinch grip, and I like that too. But one problem with the pinch grip is you can't really move your wrist like that and cut. Like I'm totally moving my whole body when I have to do that. But when I do a little bit of a pinch grip where I put my fingers more up on the knife, I can still go like this. I can still do somewhat of a draw cut like that, and I can still do a push cut like that. And I just find that that's a really good grip for EDC use, and that's just a really nice thing. So one thing that I completely forgot to say when I was talking about the design is just how amazingly good this blade to handle ratio is. Usually I don't care about blade to handle ratio. Like I have a Spyderco Pair 3, and so I don't really care about that because there's a finger choil to choke up on. But when there isn't a finger choil, I do kind of care about the blade to handle ratio. But they just used the most amount of blade as possible that they could with this knife. As you guys can see when I'm closing it, look how much blade there is to that handle. It's still outside of the handle, and it finally locks in. But you guys might be afraid that you can poke that with your finger. But even when I'm jamming my finger in there, even when I'm jamming my pinky in there, I can't touch that. And also when you're moving your hand across this blade, you can push your pinky in here and touch that blade, or at least I can. But I can move my hand across here all I want, and it's not going to cut me. So when you're reaching into something other in your pocket than your knife, it won't cut you, and you don't have to worry about that at all. But I just want to say that the blade to handle ratio on this guy is really, really nice. So I've talked a lot. I mean, I'm out of breath. But anyway, onto the deployment and action of this knife. So I feel like this is a section where a lot of people get turned away from the Sebenzas, just because they are not the flippy drop shutty action that people are used to. Like a ZT, a lot of people like this just because it's super smooth and it drops shut and it's super fun to play with. But this one, it's a thumb roller. Like a lot of times, like look at that, I failed to open it, but if I put a little wrist, I can thumb flick it. But honestly, I wouldn't want to do that. The thumb studs, if I thumb flick it, they would tear up my thumb a little bit. Or with a long, if I sat on the couch and flicked this many times, it would tear up my thumb. But what I like to do is I like to use more of the meat of my thumb, so you guys can see right there, and kind of just thumb roll it out like that, and that is not a problem at all. And also, this uses a pivot bushing on the inside. It runs on phosphor bronze washers, very big phosphor bronze washers. So the pivot bushing, when the lock is disengaged, this knife is actually very smooth, so it does drop to my finger like that. but it is not a shake shut at all. So this is not a fidget knife. This is just purposely meant to be functional and meant to be used and meant to be a work knife and not something that you sit on the couch and play with. But there's nothing wrong with playing with your knives, but I usually just play with one knife on the couch and I don't have to play with all of my knives, so this is not a problem to me at all. And I do prefer washers over bearings just because I don't have to worry about them gunking up, and they do run better dry, which I don't really like to lubricate all my knives constantly. It's just another thing I have to remember, and even though it's not that big of a problem, I just don't always want to do it. So that was it for the action, the value of this knife. So this knife, like I said before, which I hope I said before, is $450, which you guys probably would expect out of a Sebenza if you are watching this video. And you guys are probably like, well, how'd you afford this knife? Basically, I told this story when I unboxed this knife, but I had bought a lot of cheap knives, one of them being the CGRB, which there's nothing wrong with these knives, but they are just cheap Chinese budget knives. And I had bought like 4 or 5 of them, and I just thought to myself, I was like, hold up, I just bought 4 or 5 Chinese knives. That probably cost me $200 to $250 worth of $40 or $50 knives. What if I just didn't buy any of those and bought a $200 knife? And then I kind of got inspired because a Sebenza, I always kind of thought of it as something that I could never get. Or maybe if I was rich in like 10 years, I'd have a Sebenza and I'd love it. But I never really thought that right now I would be getting one. And that is what really makes me happy about this knife. It's like every time I look at it, I see a great knife, but I also see how I achieved a goal that I wanted to achieve by saving up for this and not just having 5 budget knives in my collection, having one really awesome knife that is going to last me forever. Also, with this lockup here, you guys might notice that is a late lockup, but I have never, ever seen a Sebenza at 100% lockup, so I don't think you have to worry about that. And if you do, I bet the people at Reeve either would replace it or just give you an applause for using your knife that much, but I don't really know. They have a great warranty, and that is another good example for why I think this knife is worth $450. Because a lot of people think that Sebenza should be priced $100 less, and I completely understand that. They're like, okay, I can get a Reeve knife that's $350 maybe, that has better flipping action, maybe a 20 CV blade steel instead of S35VN. Maybe they like the frame lock more, maybe it carries more, maybe it's more smooth, I don't really know. But it's not a Sebenza. You do not have their warranty, and their warranty is amazing. You can pay, I believe, like $20 for a spa treatment, and you can go ship it to them. They basically re-blast the blades and basically make it a whole new knife. It's like getting your car detailed, but for your knives. It is a legitimate spa treatment, which is really cool. Let's say if you want to sell your knife, you could send it at them for a spa treatment, pay $20, you might get $50 more out of the knife than you would originally get if it's got snail trails all over it and whatever. And so the Reeve warranty, I would honestly am happy to pay $100 more for that warranty, even though I don't think I'm going to find a way to break this knife. It's just I always want to feel secure with my knife. I wouldn't want to get a Reeve like the example I was using before, and then maybe if I had to do the warranty, I don't even know if they have a good warranty service. Maybe I'd have to ship it all the way to China, get them to work on it, and maybe a couple months later get my knife back. And I don't know, maybe like a Sebenza, if you break off the clip, they'll probably offer you a new clip. Oh man, I completely forgot to talk about that in carry. I really like this clip. I just talked about the position of it. This has a double tension clip, and basically what this does is this is a pretty light tension on here, so it slides in the pocket very easily. But what this extra divot here does is that locks onto your pant material, and so it keeps the knife from falling out. I've never had this knife even come close to falling out, and it's not hard to actually pull out of my pocket, and this is not a pants eater or pocket eater. I don't know why I said pants eater at all. It is just a great carry of this knife. So I've rambled on and all that, but what I want to say is for $450, I think this knife is worth it. That is just me. Even though a lot of people, you guys are still going to just see S35VN titanium frame lock, $450, and then you're going to go storm into the comment section, which I am open to talk to you guys down there, so please do that. But to be totally honest, I'm so glad I bought this knife, and I think that it was worth every penny. Or, yeah, I think that it was worth a lot of the money I spent on it. I'm not going to say worth every penny, and I'm not going to go out if one of my friends is like, hey, I kind of want a pocket knife because I need to cut up boxes at work or whatever. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, get a Sebenza. And they're like, how much is it? I'm like, oh, it's $450, but trust me, it's got a ceramic ball interface that'll last you a long time. It's got a hollow grind. And I'm not going to say that. I'm probably going to recommend them like a Kershaw leak or something. But anyway, I've rambled on with this video for a long time. I'm at the 20-minute mark right now, but to be totally honest with you guys, I could talk for about 30 more minutes about this knife. I just really, really like it. So I hope I wasn't too rambly, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe if you are new. I am closing in on 500 subs. I'm going to be giving away this free tiger knife, a Kaiser Mini Sheepdog. I'll throw in some little accessories here and there, but I'm going to be excited for this giveaway, so I hope you guys should be too. And by the way, thanks for everyone for subscribing. I really appreciate it. But that's going to do it for my overview of the Chris Reeve Knives Large Sebenza 31. If you have enjoyed, like the video, and if you want to see more, please subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.